Hello and welcome to Why Design, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the founders and senior leaders shaping the world of physical product development. I'm Chris Whyte, your host and founder of Kodu, a recruitment company dedicated exclusively to physical product development. Over the past decade, I've had the privilege of interviewing remarkable people in this space, and their incredible stories inspired me to create this podcast. In each episode, we dive into the journeys, insights, and lessons from founders and design leaders driving innovation in people and planet-friendly hardware. So let's get started. In today's episode, I'm joined by Andrew Carr, founder of Bebello. Bebello is a mission-driven startup focused on creating sustainable, time-saving solutions for new parents, with their flagship product, the Bebello Washer, designed to simplify bottle and pump cleaning while reducing environmental impact. In this conversation, Andrew shares how his career journey from working on groundbreaking products like Elvie's silent wearable breast pump to leading engineering teams at Shark Ninja and Plexus shaped his approach to innovation and sustainability. We dive into what it takes to build a hardware startup, the challenges of designing for real-world user needs, and how sustainability can drive both product and business decisions. If you're curious about aligning sustainability with product development, launching a mission-driven business, or creating designs that make a real impact, this episode is for you. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you. So let's run through your design journey then. So Andrew, your career began with a Master's in Product Design Engineering from the University of Glasgow and Glasgow School of Art before moving into design consultancy with Spec Design, working both in San Francisco and then Shanghai, where you contributed to projects across consumer and medical devices. You then transitioned into large-scale roles at Whyte, Plexus, and Shark Ninja, where you led engineering teams and managed high-profile projects like the BL480 blender and Ninja's first coffee maker, which became North America's top seller. After that, you joined Elvie, where you helped disrupt the breast pump market with the revolutionary Elvie pump and led sustainability and innovation projects, including their first circular product development initiative. Now you've taken everything you've learned over the years and launched Bebello, where you're not just designing products, but building a business focused on sustainability and impact. Your first product, the Bebello Washer, is all about saving time for parents while reducing environmental impact, a perfect example of blending thoughtful design with purpose. Today, we'll dig into those lessons that you've learned along the way, the challenges of launching a startup in a competitive space, and what it takes to design for a more sustainable future. So, why don't we start at the beginning, eh? Why design? What kind of got you into product design engineering?
I think it was one of those things where at school I was quite good at art and design and quite good at sort of maths and physics as well. The thought process, you're that young, you're 17, trying to make decisions and what to go forward. I kind of elegantly just mashed those together and looked through the prospectuses, and I was sort of like, oh, maybe I could be an architect. And it's like, oh, I like the idea of creating buildings that people inhabit and live in, thinking about how people interact with these things. But there's a technical challenge as well. And then kept on flicking through the prospectuses, and it's like, oh, wow, product design. That sounds fantastic. As a kid, used to take products apart, annoying my parents, as quite often the case is. And then it's just sort of like, yeah, this is what I want to do. All 5 applications for product design. Fell in love with it. And, quite a long introduction there. I've been doing this 17, 18 years. And yeah, I wouldn't be doing anything else really. I just total product nerd, absolutely love it, trying to figure out what the technical solution is to a product, but something that's really delightful, that creates an incredible experience for people. Yeah, it's one of those. I found what I wanted to do and I love it. So it's great.
That's awesome. And as you said, like a lot of people and myself included, when you're at that stage of your life, it's like, okay, decide what you're going to be. It's like, I don't know, what are the choices? You're only like, your view of the world's very limited by that point. But so it's fantastic that you found your kind of your journey very early on, and that's wonderful. So we'll blitz through some of the highlights. As I said in the intro, we've covered quite a lot in those 17 years, but you've spent time. Obviously, you're from Scotland originally. Spent time in Scotland. You've been up out in the States as well, and then over in China. What are some of the highlights of your earlier career that you think maybe kind of molded you into the designer, the engineer, and the leader that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, the early parts, like in San Francisco and Shanghai, is just like such a culture shock coming from the UK and especially Scotland, I think. Like just parachuted into the Bay Area. And then you're working at a design consultancy, it's quite high pressure. You're going out to some of the biggest companies in the world. They're all like half an hour from your office. So you're into like Apple and Cisco Systems and Medtronic. And just seeing the scale of these companies and the scale that they do things at, it was just such an eye opener because this is where all of the world's products come from, really. And then it's just fun being a young guy working and living out in that environment in the States, like a new culture. Just a great fun part of life. And then similarly in Shanghai, it was just the scale that things are done in China as well. Like a similar, you'd go into Huawei's offices and like that was a campus with 100,000 people. That's like twice the working population of the town I grew up in, and like what 100,000 people look like when they go to work in the mornings.
Can't even comprehend that.
Yeah, I can't really even believe that it happens on a daily basis. Yeah. It's just so staggering, and that's just one company in like Shenzhen, which is a city of 30 million people, which 30 years ago was 30,000 people. So it's just like the scale that humanity does things on when you leave shores is just pretty staggering.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've been to the GSK site in Brentford, and I thought that was big because that's like I don't know if you've ever been, but it's a campus as well. But so you've got all the offices, but then you've always got like a high street on the ground floor where they've got a barbers and a coffee shop and all that kind of stuff. But then it's like 10 floors up as well, and there's a coffee shop on every floor.
Yeah,
but that sounds like that's nothing. It's the equivalent to a tiny village compared to what you've just described at Huawei.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, going back to China now is just so interesting because it's so advanced, bullet trains running left, right, and center. Like the scale of infrastructure to support what happens in that country is just so off the chart. So it's a real privilege, to be honest, to be able to get exposure to that. And that's what I get with product design.
So that was your first role outside of uni, wasn't it? Because the Scottish Health Innovations, I'm presuming that was the placement year.
Yeah, well, actually, I was doing that as well as studying. Yeah. To be honest, I was doing that full time as well as the master's year.
Oh, crikey! Okay,
just a bit fell apart that year, to be honest.
Well, that shows your drive. I think if you're able to balance that and come out and have the career you have, then that tells me I'm speaking to the right person. So how did San Francisco come about for kind of a young kind of Scottish graduate then?
Do you know what? Being so busy in my final year that I didn't get my act together and applying for graduate schemes.
Okay.
So I was just so busy that I didn't get through that process. Hadn't really sorted myself out. Just got spat out at the end of university without a gig. So there wasn't an awful lot of opportunity in the UK at that point in time. So started sending my CV to companies all over the world. I could have ended up in Taiwan, could have ended up in Africa, but luckily a design consultancy in California were willing to take a punt on this guy's an intern, basically. Went out on an internship visa, which is really easy to get, by the way. I'd recommend everybody. Yeah, within 2 years of graduation, you can get pretty much a no questions asked visa to the States for sort of an internship thing, pays for your health insurance. So went in on that.
Oh, wow.
Got transitioned to full-term employment. Spent a year there, then an opportunity popped up in China.
So the key I'm taking from that is, don't panic. If you get to the end of university and you've not sorted out like a gig or kind of graduate scheme, there's a big wide world out there, and it's not as inaccessible as one might presume. So even with Donald Trump coming in, I guess there's been Republicans in and everything, hasn't it?
You really notice as well, actually, in the product design game, like there's people from the UK in really senior positions.
Oh yeah.
All of these companies around the world. I remember going out to different offices and stuff, hearing like British accents in the States and in China. And it's like the quality of product design and engineering talent coming out of the UK really does spread around the world. So like it's a real sort of testament to the caliber of people you get coming out of universities.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's we get everywhere us Brits do, don't we? So and then so you came home, did a few a few more stints. You co-founded a business as well. What looks like Bounce Football. Was that product related, or was that on the side?
A bit of a foray into the digital product world, I guess.
We're not allowed to talk about digital on here, by the way.
I know. Stealing phrases and that was a great fun experience. A time where I knew nothing about business. Like you're trained really well in how to design products, but you know nothing about like how a business works. You've not studied that. Learning journey probably in how not to do things there, but like, it was an app that we were trying to develop to help people organize games of sport. And this five-a-side football, trying to kind of unite people that could play together to try to stop that problem of like a last-minute dropout, etc. It was great. Like the thing we developed was superb, but just turned out there wasn't really the market for it. I've tried since and not really got anywhere with it. So I think a great idea, but just not the right commercial opportunity.
Yeah, super useful. But yeah, say I could kind of
It's one of those ones.
all the time.
I was going to say it's like a no-brainer product thing. It's
Yeah.
like, wouldn't this be great? But when you actually start looking at the commercialization side of things, it's like, yeah, there's a few businesses out there that sort of limp along a little bit, but it's not like it's taking off. And at that time when we were doing it, social media was really taking off as well. So it was sort of like, yeah, go into this, and somehow money will follow later. And nobody was thinking about that. So,
absolutely. Oh well, it's a good experience either way, isn't it? The lessons learned there. So and then you came home. You got the gig at Plexus for a few years, best part of 4 years. So my understanding of Plexus is they're quite a big, very technical design consultancy. So I don't know much about Spec. How did it compare? Obviously, there's the international element there, but how did your time at Spec compare to Plexus?
Yeah, so Spec was really interesting. Like it's a great company, design consultancy of, I think it was around about 60 people at the time, founded by some ex-IDEO people. So they let IDEO 4 guys set up together. So quite similar methods of operation, like really innovation focused. So like fantastic getting exposure to that. But then the range of clients that you got through that was just a really, really wide spectrum, from like small Californian startups doing just like quick prototyping work for them, like working for like some of the biggest multinationals in the world, and the different, getting exposure to the different challenges there was really interesting. Plexus, it's quite a big American company with like a manufacturing side and a design consultancy side. So really, really medical device heavy there. Some like really, really serious bits of medical equipment that we were developing. And then we were kind of developing it to put through into the manufacturing side as well. So that was my first sort of step into the world of like, you're designing a thing to be made. So in the design consultancy world, it was sort of like all about innovation, what you could do, what you could create. And it was all quite prototypey. And then somebody else would figure out the bit of how do you actually finish this project off. So the next job at Plexus was sort of like, well, you cannot shortcut yourself. Like this thing needs to be realizable. And so it's interesting, like getting onto production lines. The people that make the things are a big part of the stakeholder system as well. And just exposure to, again, incredible companies with big deep pockets, developing real things that kind of keep people alive, life support systems, go inside the body. Some crazy heavy stuff, to be honest. Seen a lot of surgeries and things like that, which haunt you a little bit. Unbelievable respect for like doctors, nurses, surgeons that keep people alive in healthcare. It's just I mean, those are real jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've spoken to countless consultants over the years who've regaled me with the stories of kind of user testing and kind of meeting with surgeons and clinicians. And it's so important, isn't it? Because that one small change that you make into the next product could make a massive difference to not only the outcome for the patient, but also it makes the whole process a lot easier. It makes it more comfortable. If you're on your feet for 8 hours performing the surgery, you've got to consider that.
Getting in like knee surgery, which is just like a chisel and a hammer on a leg. It's just staggering stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my dad's just had knee surgery and replacement, and compared to how it used to be, like his scars are quite kind of small, because I think they use a lot of robotics now, don't they, and keyhole surgery. So hopefully by the time I need to have my knees swapped out, I'll be up on my feet in a couple of days. Who knows? But so I imagine then, from what you're saying, that Plexus is the perfect kind of go-between, really, from someone who's been in that traditional consultancy where you say, you get to a point and then the project is handed over back to the client or to another entity who manufactures it. And that's most design consultancies, really. But because you're doing the manufacturing side as well, that's a great stepping stone into kind of a product business then. So Shark Ninja was the next role.
Yeah,
So
like a real change in pace, I think, because like in the medical device world, like projects take a long time. It's like a really big team. It's usually really well resourced because you've got to meet all of these regulatory challenges. You've got to have everything documented for years on end. You're very much working inside a process. Whereas, yeah, the Shark Ninja experience is really kind of, I mean, just out the frying pan into the fire is not really close enough because you're moving into
the air fryer.
yeah, that's it. You cook much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a staggering change of pace, really. Like, I think that was like 10 years experience crammed into two, honestly.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable company that was kind of almost like a reset. So I'd been working for around, I don't know, 8 years by that point, but it's like, felt like I started all over again. Like, you really lose a lot of design snobbery, I think, working at that company because they've clearly got a recipe for success. Like, it's an absolute juggernaut of a company.
Oh, yeah.
That grows at an unbelievable rate every year. And they've got like a real sort of secret sauce to what they do. And it actually jars quite a lot, I think, with what you learn at university and some of the kind of standard design practices. So, like you're briefed up on Dieter Rams and all of these great designers of the past and, the 10 commandments of design, etc. When we started there, I was part of a team that kind of set up the London office and
yeah.
We were all immersed in the same sort of background, and that just didn't fly at that company. I mean, it just couldn't be further away from Dieter Rams and trying to create this really aesthetic with a minimum number of buttons and like form and function. Completely different game there. It was like a relentless focus on the user experience. So like an incomprehensible amount of user testing, both from this is how people use the product, but also from a marketing perspective on what do people desire, not necessarily what they need, but what do you sort of desire from a product and the psychology of what makes people attracted to buying a thing. So actually delivered really good product, but really tapped into the things that people sort of wanted and how you sell those and sort of like creating an aesthetic that you can talk about on TV or an infomercial, which they used a lot of. So incredibly smart from a commercial perspective, which Dieter Rams wasn't interested in, so he doesn't talk about.
But it completely makes sense. And they're not in my mind anyway, they're not a product business. They're a marketing business that has products, and they do it exceptionally well. It just happens to be that the products are well considered, and they're obviously they work tremendously well. But yeah,
they've got better year by year as well. To be honest, they do genuinely improve year by year, and it's quite. I mean, you see them everywhere in every house now. It's quite incredible to see that, and it's a measure of their success.
Were you because back around that 2014 when you joined them, that's when I became more aware of them in my line of work, and one of the I'd speak to candidates who had been for interviews at the London office, and they were always pushing to get people out to Boston. Were you never kind of tempted or kind of to go back to the States, or was that on the cards?
I'd done California like quite early in my career, and had no objections to going back to the States, but just at a different stage of life, really, in terms of relationship in the UK. If my partner had wanted to go across, I think we would definitely have done it. But I really enjoy living in the UK. Like ultimately, it's like a fantastic place to live and work. You would earn, maybe double the salary in the States. Materially much more wealthy, but consequences of having little holiday. The work-life balance maybe not quite so good. I do like to have a nice holiday every now and again.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've just come back from a trip to the States, and I absolutely loved my time there. But if I ever had any kind of inkling to move over there, it was cemented that no, I'm quite happy with my life. I'm quite happy to travel. Like you, I like my holiday, and the living standards are probably about the same, in terms of once you kind of take everything away and what you have to pay extra for over there. Yeah, so I can't fault people who go over there, though. You can see there's a lot of opportunity, and it's quite an exciting place, isn't it?
And I would go so far as to say, I would recommend everybody from the UK go and experience a few years of working in the States, because, the working culture is quite different. Like the positivity is infectious, the can-do attitude, we can mope about in this country dragging our feet a little bit. I don't know if it's the way. Yeah, in America, it's really great to see that exposure. It's also great to see how they use money differently to the way we use money. So, like, quite often money doesn't get in the you want to do a thing, it's going to cost you money, so spend the money on great tools, great people, etc., to achieve your goals. Whereas sometimes I find UK companies can, almost make life harder, because we've got such a Heath Robinson attitude on occasion to sort of, put a few pennies in and try and achieve crazy results. Like,
well, I see it all the time, or have done over the years, where candidates get to an offer stage, and even though the expectations have been communicated all the way along and the budget's been communicated, a client will come back, or the employer will come back with a low ball offer. It's like, well, all you've done there is waste weeks of yours and the candidate's time. And if they do join you, it's not a great kind of starting point, is it?
Yeah, totally. And it's just like, if you want to achieve results, like, hire good people, use good equipment, like, invest in that, because you're investing in success. So if things go wrong, you can change things. You can change your computer. And then if the person's really not working out, you can just have a conversation and say, this isn't the match you expected. Let's find a different option. Just conscious.
Absolutely. Yeah, but well, I'll pass that advice on to my partner. Then we'll be packing our bags and spending a couple of years out in the States. But awesome. So you spent a couple of years, or 2.5 years, at Shark Ninja, and then found Elvie, a very different business, and a business I'm particularly fond of. There's a lot of great people there, and working on. Perhaps you could give us a brief kind of intro for those who are listening that aren't familiar with Elvie, kind of the product that you worked on.
Yeah, so Elvie are just a phenomenal company, really, really mission driven by a spectacular founder. The mission of the company is to empower women through radical female first technology. So that's addressing the challenges that women face in life that men don't have to. Like menstruation, menopause, like if you have children, the challenges that come after childbirth, during childbirth, etc. Loads of great product development going on at that company. Currently, products they have released so far, but the big one that I worked on there was called Elvie Pump. So really quite transformational product development. Had the moniker of being the world's first silent wearable breast pump. And if you're not familiar with this space, like, I remember I joined in 2016, and like, breast pumps were so shockingly bad. Like, I hadn't been aware of this. I've got kids now. I didn't have kids then. It was just like, got this thing put in front of me at a table at the interview, and it's like, this is like the best technology that exists on the market right now. I was just appalled by how bad it was.
Yeah.
If you could try to create the worst solution for this challenge, which is expressing milk, like this is what it would be. And that was the best thing in market. So it's just like, right, we want to try and change this. It's 2016. It's like, it's unfair that women are put through this experience. Like, what can we create to change this? And that's what we set out to achieve. And just an absolutely phenomenal product development with, the most talented team that I've ever worked with. Really mission driven to try and change things, and led on to quite a lot of subsequent commercial success off the back of that. So really the kind of perfect story of like problem, solution, executing that solution, and then launching it. So the full spectrum, just an incredible product. But it went on to feature on, I think it was the 2019 cover of Time magazine as one of the best.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Year, yeah. What else? Basically disrupted a $4 billion industry, set the status quo for what every other product in that space like as well. So it's really the dream project.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I ran a networking event with Elvie in September last year, so 2023, and Tom Malloy, who was on the podcast, kind of third episode, I think, he did a talk on inclusive design, and it was fascinating. But it was the lengths that you guys went to, and kind of, it was super interesting, and problems that us blokes would never really consider. You
Yeah.
know, we've got to capture some milk, we've got to pump it, let's just put it together. And I think that's what you get with a lot of kind of the breast pumps on the market, whether they're manual or electronic. But the detail and the problem solving that only comes from a woman's perspective. And it's fascinating. Everyone that was there thought it was really, really insightful conversation.
It's a real testament to the research team as well. Like, you just couldn't do projects like that without a phenomenal research team to go out and like interview the mums that are using it, testing the prototypes, understanding what works, what doesn't work, like getting the insights to even understand what would make a transformative difference. And something that would come up quite a lot, because there's like a roughly 50-50 mix like of men and women on the project, and the men would always get asked, how can you be designing a product like this? And it's a pretty standard answer, because most of the things that you design in life, they're not for you, they're for somebody else. And I've never experienced the life of a surgeon or any of these other things. So like the research team were very much like our eyes and ears. So it was a very sort of pure form of design and engineering. Like, because you've got no experience of the challenge, you have to trust inherently the research team and the insights that you're getting. So like, you don't bring that bias to the product developments. Like, for example, here James Dyson would have a lot of design reviews where, he inherently sets a lot of the design direction and the design decisions based on his own experiences. You absolutely can't do that. Elvie, so that's the purity of the design. You're purely following research because you've got no of understanding what this experience is like.
That's fantastic. And it's really natural then, I guess, and given your personal experience as well, kind of, was it your first child that came along as you were starting Bebello, or that inspired Bebello?
Yeah, so my son Lewis was definitely the inspiration for Bebello. So, we had Lewis, like with a lot of people, the intention to try and breastfeed him from the get-go, but that turned out to be a challenge for a number of reasons. So we just had to switch over to bottle feeding pretty instantly. Like, washing baby bottles and like breast pump parts is just like, you wouldn't expect it, but it takes so much time out of your day. Like, they're really, really hard things to clean, and like breast are really sticky. You have to use extremely hot water to try and get it off. Lots of fiddly nooks and crannies and bottles. And you do this like 3 to 5 times
constant.
a day. It's constant, never ending. And if you don't do it, you can't feed them if you've not got the things cleaned and sterile. So it's just such a time sink at a time where you're just trying to survive and like get through every day, because having a new kid's chaotic. And like, you're really worried that you've not done it right for the next feed or pumping session. So that was like my personal experience, because that was my job. And it's just like, there has to be something better than this. There has to be a solution for it. And then we've kind of seen it at Elvie as well, honestly, like when we were doing research with parents or mums specifically who use breast pumps, that, mums, dads, families were struggling under the weight of this extra unseen. So it's like, right, there needs to be a solution for this. So that was really the inspiration to kick off the project of Bebello and start trying to develop the product and build the company around it as well.
Because you've got the high volume kind of electromechanical machines from Shark Ninja, but then moving into more kind of mission focused and inclusive role, and then it's a natural move then to form your own business, given your experiences and so many learnings as well during time that you can apply to.
I'm interrupting this episode to share some exciting things happening around Why Design. At the core of this podcast are the incredible design journeys my guests have been on and where they're heading. And these journeys stem from the relationships they build, the communities they're part of, and the amazing achievements that come from collaboration. So beyond the podcast, we're hosting regular online huddles and quarterly meetups in the UK, with plans underway for an annual gathering in the US. We're also running hands-on workshops both in person at makerspaces and online to connect and inspire people in physical product development. So if you'd like to join us or stay in the loop about upcoming events, sign up at teamkodu.com/events or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
I would like to say I would have started this company earlier, but I suppose the opportunity didn't really present itself to me until that moment. But yeah, it's really learnings from the whole journey that's tied into this. So like you mentioned before, I led the sustainability team at Elvie, which was just an incredible experience. So gave the exposure of how you analyze a company's carbon footprint and where the pollution is, etc. Delivering a sustainability report, doing the life cycle assessments on the products. So you kind of get this inherent feeling for where the environmental damage gets done. So that, like, those things feature in the new company. So Bebello, so we're now trying to create like incredible products for new parents that save them time to just give you that time back to be a new parent or to get on with other chores or to just catch up on sleep. So that's the user focus side, but we're trying to develop it so planet or the environment is very much core to the being of the company. So it's not trying to take an existing company and then try and make it sustainable. It's like a sustainable company from the get-go.
Yeah.
So by disrupting this process of hand washing, so Bebello Washer automatically washes baby bottles, breast pump parts, it sterilizes them, it delivers them dry. By doing that, you stop people hand washing because it's a better solution. Hand washing, you use so much water, and heating water is actually like that's 30% of the UK's carbon footprint is just heating water for cleaning, cooking, their homes. So like what we're doing with the Bebello Washer is replacing the hand washing, stopping this kind of like excess burning gas to heat water. So like the carbon emissions come down by like 80 to 88%, like per day versus the hand wash. That's pretty staggering.
So yeah, we've kind of naturally moved into that, and you've probably already given this, but do you want to give your headline or your kind of elevator pitch for Bebello Washer then, and where the business is at, and we can talk about some of the things that that you've written down as well.
Yeah. So the mission, like the big, hairy, audacious goal for Bebello, so it's to create incredible time-saving products for new parents that don't cost the earth. So maybe trying to be a bit too clever, but it's just time is your big pressure as a parent. Most of the products out there that exist, like they're okay at their jobs, but I've worked in that space and they could be a lot better. There's a lot of room for improvement. And then the not costing the earth piece is that like parenthood products are designed for a really short life cycle. You use them for like 6 to 9 months, and then there's no consideration for what happens next to these products. So like they'll maybe get used a couple of times more, sold on eBay, hand-me-downs, but like they ultimately end up in landfill because recycling rates are so poor. So what we're trying to do is we're designing our products from the get-go for like repairability as our first thing. So repairability and rental. So that means that in 10 years' time, we'd like to think we can grow the rental market for parenthood products. In theory, if you can design a product for rental, you've invested more in that product's creation. So that means you create a better product experience because you've had more money to spend in the product's creation. You create technical performance that's best as well. You can use that product again and again and again and again. And because it's the best option for parents, for customers, that's what they want to get. They don't want the designed for cheapness product that doesn't work as well. It just doesn't make sense to do the linear economy business's normal pathway. So that's what we're trying to create. And then Bebello Washer is our first product. And we went deliberately for that because there was no competition. Like there was nothing out there that existed like this. Inherently, it makes sense to disrupt hand washing because there's so much waste of water and carbon emissions for hand washing. Takes that burden out of your life, gives you like an hour back a day versus the hand washing piece.
Yeah.
It's just transformative for parents. So it's the best option for people. It disrupts a really polluting practice right now and then is built for the circular economy as well. We sell it with a buyback condition and the buyback buyback promise. So once you've finished using it, we'll buy it back off you again and we'll refurb it and we'll put it back up on our certified pre-love channel. So yeah, majority right now, but then over time, we hope to get the kind of more sustainable business models aspect going.
Well, it's still very, very new, isn't it? You've, well, if LinkedIn's up to date, it's less than 2 years since you launched. So it's pretty good going to, and you've got a product in market now. People are buying it. Yeah. So yeah, pretty good going. So what have been the biggest unexpected challenges, I suppose, because you've had a great experience up to date, great journey and across consultancy, big global kind of consultancies and manufacturing giants, and then startup. But I imagine starting your own business is very different to joining someone else's started up business.
Yeah. And sorry, the question is, what's the biggest challenge?
Yeah, so I imagine you would have seen some challenges coming, but then what kind of caught you by surprise that you weren't expecting?
Great question. So we're trying to, with Bebello, we're trying to create a business that's inherently sustainable from the get-go. Maybe naively, I just thought it was going to be starting a business like any other. But what I've learned through the process is that, like, the way the world works, we're set up for an economy where a company makes a thing, you buy a thing, and there's no consideration for what happens next. So all of the infrastructure is set up to support that. Like, so all of the business advice, accounting practices, all of the apps that you use to sell your product, all of the tools are set up purely for sales. And there's a couple of companies that are trying to do rental or refurbishment and things like that, but it's all really, really new. So what that means for any company that's trying to set up a sustainable business is that you have to put in maybe 50 to 100% more effort trying to solutions to make your business a reality. So that is like, if you're trying to do rental, you have to look for workarounds and plugins or pay developers to create your selling platforms, if you like, because they just don't really exist right now.
Because have you found anything? Sorry to cut across, but have you found any off-the-shelf tools that can plug into those platforms, or if you had to go down the developer route?
So we spent a heck of a lot of time looking into that. There are a couple of things out there, but I can't quite remember their names. We could maybe find them for the show notes. But what we did in the end was we partnered with, there's quite a few rental startups at the moment. So we partnered with a company that was renting parenthood products. So it was sort of like, we outsourced the problem to them essentially and stopped trying to do it ourselves, because that's their specialism and that's what they're focused on. And we want to try and create the products that will then be rented out. So focus on what we are good at, and they can do what they are good at.
There's a good lesson there.
That's. I mean, that happens a lot in business, I guess. The other bit is creating a product that's inherently sustainable. Medical device development is a great example here. So there's loads of regulation around that. And your table stakes, your minimum point of entry to sell a medical device is you have to jump through the medical device development hoops. That means that you have to raise X amount of money to develop a medical device. You need a team that's that size, that has quality people, etc. So you build out your team to meet those regulations. So our products are not medical devices, and there's not much regulation in the space. So we're competing with companies that develop things in the cheapest possible way, as fast as possible. And they're quite big organizations and they're really good at what they do. So our competition is quite tough in that sense. But we are adding on extra work by designing an inherently sustainable product. So we have to do a life cycle assessment on that to sort of understand and optimize what materials we're choosing for the product, and thinking about the distribution pathways, etc., to try and minimize our carbon footprint in product creation and the life phase. So that takes, because it's not on their design, if they don't allocate resource to it, and we have to do that, and we have to force that some way. So it's like the effort is 50 to 100% more than just creating a normal product and creating a normal product business. So it's two sides, it's design and the business side of things. And what's kind of coming through from this, and I think it's a really good point. I didn't start this, but there's, I think it's in the sustainable fashion world where, you're trying to do rental, trying to encourage refurbishment to limit the amount of new fashion that's made. Like, these companies have cottoned on to the fact that, you can regulate or you can incentivize. One of the most effective tools of government is to incentivize, and that happens a lot with VAT, like fruit and vegetables, 0% VAT.
Yeah.
Like children's clothes, 0% VAT, like gym membership, 0% VAT. So trying to encourage healthy and good things generally is associated with zero VAT. So if we've got to put this extra effort in and we still get the government taking 20% of our revenue off us, that's hard to compete. So I think what we'll start to see over the next few years is a movement to try and either repeal VAT or actually give a VAT benefit if you're trying to do environmentally positive business. And that helps counter that cost piece of the extra effort you're putting in, and gives you a little bit of a level playing field with like the big business's normal way of doing it. So I think that's one to watch out for over the next few years. And I feel that incentive really strongly at Bebello.
Is that a the zero VAT or negative VAT, as you put on the notes you sent to me? Is that coming up in conversations you're having with other founders or people in the industry, or even kind of politicians?
So it is. There's actually a bill, or I forget the language, but it's been reviewed in Parliament.
Okay.
There is like a video you can go and see. I think it happened last year, where this discussion point was floated for the fast fashion industry, where all the eyeballs are on at the moment. So you get that attention in Parliament. So yes, I'd like to think I have the name or the link for that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's where we might see it first, because that's where the optics are. And I always think the irony that like fashion gets all of this attention, where like electronic devices, which are theoretically much more polluting than clothes, I think that's where the eye of public opinion will probably turn on quite negatively in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it's one of the big challenges of our time, isn't it? Until consumer behavior fundamentally changes, or business behavior fundamentally changes, nothing will really change, because if you can still buy cheap stuff from China, most people will go for the cost option if they don't know any better, unfortunately.
And that's the challenge. It's like sustainable products have already got a bad rep because you associate it with products that work 80% as well as the non-sustainable option. So I think designers, engineers, entrepreneurs need to get on board with, how do you find the environmentally friendly solution still the best option for people, because it's the best option that wins. So best in experience, performance, and price. And it's kind of like anything else is sort of somewhat unacceptable, I think. If you want to win and you want to genuinely change things and create evidence of success, you need to be the best. And then everybody will copy you and follow you. And if they're doing that with better environmental credentials, then that's like a win for everyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it only takes one or two big kind of well-known brands, like a Shark Ninja or an Apple. I know Apple are doing a bit around. Well, I think they're being forced into repairability, aren't they? But it takes a few kind of flagship companies to then turn the dial.
The obvious one for this, and it's not a particularly popular talking point at the moment, Elon Musk's involved with it, but like the way that Tesla have accelerated the adoption of electric vehicles, it's absolutely phenomenal. And they did that through making electric vehicles like cool, aspirational, desirable, and disrupted the kind of traditional car market. And all of the big car companies, the ones that didn't adapt, are really struggling to react now.
Yeah.
And that's a clear model for disruptive success, really. Put the best environmentally friendly solution out there, and people will vote for it with their spending.
Absolutely. So wonderful. So what are you most excited about over the next kind of 12 months then with Bebello? Because coming up to 2 years, what does kind of year three look like?
Coming up to 2 years, that, like, the first year and a half of that was getting the product development. That was pretty wild to do it in a year and a half. And we've got the product launched now. For the next challenge is raise awareness, because we're a startup that nobody knows about us, nobody's heard about us. So the brand building piece, the awareness, the people that have our products right now, like, they absolutely love them. We've got so many 5-star reviews on our website, it looks disingenuous. Like, we stack them with fake reviews. So, like, just moving the company on to the next stage, get the revenue streams flowing, get people talking about this new way of doing business, telling their friends. That's what parenthood products live on. It's just little recommendations. So that's what's next. And then it's about getting the revenue stream in to allow us to work on the next product development. So we want to sort of get into the other areas inside the feeding space, and then get on to the next most polluting areas of parenthood. And there's a lot of them in there. Like, the big thing that we'd love to get to over the next few years is nappies, obviously. Like 600,000 nappies landfill every second around the world. Like, all nappies are made out of plastic. It's just that needs to be disrupted. So, if we can stabilize as a company, get the word out there after a few product developments, we'd love to disrupt the nappy space.
There's got to be some opportunity there with all the innovation in plastic alternatives now. I'm seeing packaging made out of seaweed, out of mycelium, of all sorts of genuinely compostable materials now, as opposed to under the very specific conditions compostable.
Yeah.
There's got to be. I'd be surprised if there's not some kind of sustainable nappies in the works, but
there definitely is, and there's some that are out there. There's some great brands in this space, actually. For me, the challenge right now is to understand with real detail where the environmental damage is happening. So, like, people talk about reusable nappies, but then you generally spend a lot of time cleaning those. Lots of use there. Is it better to have a biodegradable one in a certain way? So, like, it's trying to really understand how you can disrupt that space with user benefit and environmental benefit at the same time. And it has to be the best option for, like, people at the end of the day, because, like, that parenthood piece of life is so crazy. You know it yourself. Like, it's you're busy and you need solutions that work, and that's what we need to provide.
Absolutely, yeah. And on the marketing side of things, because your products are aimed at a very specific kind of audience, and it's something that most of us, it's once or twice or kind of a handful of times we might need or use this product, but a lot of times you don't become aware of the products until you need them. So there's obviously challenges around that. But what does your marketing strategy or kind of your awareness strategy look like with respect to Bebello?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So, like, parenthood sales, if you like, are just enabled through word of mouth. So, like, your strongest marketing tool is having a great product that works for people and they find it invaluable. So long term, we're really confident that we've got that with Bebello Washer. It's just giving people some conversation points to talk about it with friends. So, like, one little design feature that we put in is, like, you spend a lot of time in other people's houses when you've got, like, a new kid. And so if this thing's working in the corner, we make the washing process visible so you can see the water moving around. And it's just
okay.
It's a natural conversation starter. Like, there's a bit of theatre in there as well and a bit of magic. Yeah. You just see the soapy water flying around, and it's just like you can't help but be drawn in by that. So we really wanted to expose that visibility with, like, real clarity. So that's the talking point. And then there's the raising awareness piece. Like, you spend so much time on your phone, on sleepwalks, with your baby napping on you, etc. Like, just making people aware that this thing exists. Like, they know that they hate hand washing. Like, that's easy. And it's just like every now and again you'll see one of our ads pop up just showing this world where you don't need to hand wash anymore, and this thing is available. So those are the two things: like, make people aware, have people having conversations that this product's great, and the rest takes care of itself.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I'm particularly interested in product development, but the marketing side of things, it's something that I'm working on with my brand, and it's kind of, podcast is part of that. But when you've got such a niche product as well, it's how do you get it how do you target the right audience, how do you get it in front of them? But it's you lead with the problems and the pain points, don't you? And I guess you can have quite a fun video as part of that.
Yeah, it's lovely. And amazing music. You should look out for it.
I'll keep an eye out, but I guess I'm not being targeted at the moment because both my kids are teenagers. So.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, look, we're coming up to time on this, but I'll try and ask my guests when we have time, what kind of books and kind of podcasts are you into at the moment that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I prepared for this one. So
good.
Book number 1 is an absolute classic. Read it in 2002, so it's called Cradle to Cradle.
Okay.
By William McDonough. I think there's another author of that, but that's, like, people talk a lot about the circular economy right now, but I think this is the book that started it all off, really. So it's sort of talking about how you can take inspiration from nature and how we should treat product development and the full life cycle. I don't know if everybody's like me, but you just eat that book up. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The next one is Donut Economics by Kate Raworth.
You mentioned this on our pre-calls.
mean, it's kind of just a vision for how we move forward with, like, how do we live in a world, or how do we live on the planet sustainably, but create enough economic growth for society not to collapse? It's like a absolutely brilliant book. It's just living within the planetary boundaries. We can create this much pollution. If we create more than it, civilization's over. And then from a monetary perspective, we need to create a minimum amount of wealth to maintain society. And if we don't do that, civilization's also over and we return to the dark ages. And it's just like, between those two bounds, that's what we've got to do. And it kind of gives a little framework for that.
Yeah.
Marvelous book, yeah.
Got to be fairly mentally resilient to take that one on, because it's if you're glass half empty kind of person, you might come out with the wrong idea.
You have to come at it with positivity. Like, there is a pathway out. It's just whether enough people give it a go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, the podcast question. So, genuinely, what I listen to is quite nerdy. I listen to the Economist podcast. It's the free one. Just if I'm doing the dishes or whatever, you just get 3 random insights of news that's happening around the world and kind of current affairs and things. So it kind of gives you quite a good global perspective of things that matter. And that can filter into your sort of business decisions, which is great, and just interesting stories. And then Lenny's product podcast, so much of the world now is around digital product development, but a lot of the conversations there I think are quite relevant to any product designer. I'd recommend that one. Yeah,
awesome. Well, I'll try and include links to all of those in the show notes. But it's been great having you on the show, Andrew. Is there anyone you would like to say hello to, do a shout out to, or anything you want to raise awareness at, or how to kind of, I guess people can get in touch with you through LinkedIn, which I'll put in the show notes, but anything in particular you want to kind of end on here?
I would love to get people's feedback. So we're a really early startup. I'd love for people to go and visit our website, bebello.club, and to sanity check what we're doing. Let us know if the message is getting across and what we're trying to do, and then the sustainability side as well. So we've done the life cycle assessment on our products. We can't afford to get it audited right now because it costs so much money. So what we're trying to do is be really open and transparent in that. So I'd like people to kick the tires on what we're doing, because that just helps us get better and helps us closer to our goal of succeeding. So that's what I love people to do. And so Bebello.club is our website, and you can email me at andrew@bebello.club with your thoughts, feedback, etc.
Awesome. I'll put a note to post about that on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed our conversations. I'm looking forward to seeing how the next 12 months plus go for Bebello. It's just been wonderful having you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, fantastic chat. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been a fun conversation, kind of interesting for me to kind of revisit some of the journeys of the past. Yeah. Can't believe I've been for 18 years as well. That's haunting.
I know. A lot of people tell me it's quite cathartic, kind of being dragged through their career story, but it's you should be proud of it. You've had some great experiences, and it's all led you to where you are today. So, fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a fun adventure. It's nice to look back. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Why Design. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you're listening. It really helps others discover the podcast. And while you're at it, why not share it with a friend or colleague who'd enjoy it too? If you'd like to stay connected or explore more about the work we're doing at Kodu, feel free to visit teamkodu.com or connect with me, Chris Whyte, on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.